Hello and welcome to Your Coaching Journey, a podcast for doctors about coaching. Whether you're a coaching doctor, a doctor who is learning to coach, or a doctor who'd like to build coaching into your professional life, then this is the podcast for you.
Hi, I'm Helen Leathers, and with me today is my co-host and business partner, Tom Dillon. Good morning, Tom. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. You said that very gently.
Did I?
It was almost like your late night
Radio
call in. Hello, it's Helen. But no, I'm wonderfully well, thank you.
Good. You've thrown me completely.
Yeah, that's all right. Roll with it.
Today we're going to be talking about a huge topic. We're just going to be touching on it, but a huge topic that's become something commonly brought to the coaching space, and that's well-being.
Well-being, yes. Laughter is the best medicine I've heard. It's good for your well-being. So we've started the podcast off in a positive way.
Excellent.
So yeah, I know. I think it is something that in all different shapes and forms, well-being will show up in the coaching room. So I think it's something that we have to be aware of as coaches, and so recognise that it's something that we might be asked to address, even if we don't see ourselves as a well-being coach.
Yeah. And some people might come and go, oh, I need to think about my well-being. Other people might come with topics that fall under the umbrella of well-being.
Yes.
So I think a good place to start might be defining well-being.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that.
Thanks.
No,
it's
obviously
complicated.
Yeah, and so it could be for some people it's their physical well-being, for some other people it's their emotional well-being, for other people it's their psychological well-being. Some people might think of it in terms of work-life balance, having a well-rounded life, that sort of thing. So you know, it's
Lots of different
we need.
ideas.
It's important for us as coaches to understand where the coachee is coming from when they start talking about aspects of their well-being.
And I think coming from the other perspective, if you are thinking, I want to be a well-being coach, it's important to think, what does that mean to you? Because if you look at well-being in terms of positive psychology, there's quite a different definition of well-being compared with someone who's a health coach potentially.
Okay, so let's start with positive psychology. What would their definition of well-being be?
So again, there are a number of different definitions. The one that perhaps is most common is the idea of subjective well-being. Mm-hmm. And that is, it's like an equation. So it's like the amount of positive emotions someone feels in their life related to the amount of negative emotions someone's feeling in their life, and added into the mix their life satisfaction, their satisfaction with where they are.
So which side of the equal sign do all these things sit in this equation?
Okay, maybe it's not an equation. I don't know.
We're
what
laughing
the
again.
term is. We are, and making our brains work. So it's about. So if someone has high well-being,
yes.
So let's say high well-being equals high positive affect or emotion, low negative affect or emotion, plus their sense of life satisfaction.
Okay.
So if they've got high, like they experience lots of positive emotions, like we do, lots of laughter, but other things like they're curious, they love to learn, it's not just about being happy. They have low amount of negative emotions in their life. So generally speaking, they're a fairly, content person. And then they're satisfied with where they are in their life.
Okay.
That would all equate to a high level of well-being, and the opposite would be a low level of well-being.
And this is subjective well-being.
Subjective well-being.
So it's very subjective. It's their own interpretation.
Yes, it is.
And I think shorthand for subjective well-being is happiness, isn't it? That's what it's turned into. So when people say, "Oh, well, I just want happiness," in positive psychology terms, that phrase is actually subjective well-being.
Yes.
Good.
So that's one way of looking at it.
That didn't really help very much, did it? That's
but
complicated it further.
So no, I think it's really important, because if you were saying, I need to look after my well-being, and you meant your health, your nutrition, your physicality, and all things you might associate it with a health coach, but you went to a wellbeing coach and they were a positive psychology trained wellbeing coach, you would be talking at odds with each other.
Yes.
So I think that's why it's really important to understand what you want if you're going for coaching and what you're delivering if you're labelling yourself as a wellbeing coach.
Yeah, and actually, obviously, within the NHS, health and wellbeing coaches exist as a role. So there might be a health and wellbeing coach in a GP practice. So they're being employed in that role.
Yeah.
And I think their definition would be that they would talk to patients about improving their self-management of illness, their lifestyle changes that they might bring about to improve their health.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be diet, could be weight, could be activity levels, sort of thing. So that's the arena in which, but I guess even with that, you would still talk about stress, mood, that sort of thing as well. That would be part and parcel of it. But I think there would be more of a focus on actual health, physical health.
Yes, I think so.
The positive psychology, which is really talking about cognitive and emotional health, although exercise would come into that one.
Yes.
And the concept of savouring in positive psychology is really enjoying your food or enjoying experiences and really being in the moment. So it's all interconnected.
I think it's just very important to be clear, each individual person, what it means for you.
Yes. So we've sort of strayed into whether someone wants to be a wellbeing coach, and maybe that's an approach to coaching that we could look at in a future episode. But for the moment, we're focused on people showing up as bringing well-being as a topic. So I think that's what we're saying, is that we really need to drill down into, when you talk about well-being, what do you actually mean?
Yeah.
And I think probably within the NHS, when coaches are coaching health professionals, a lot of their time will be spent addressing stress-related issues, perhaps overwhelm, perhaps work-life balance, but the degree of stress that comes with the job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a complex job. It's an arduous job. Whatever you're doing within the health service, if you're a health professional, it's going to be tough, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So there are emotional things that come up. There are going to be stress-related issues that come up. So that's probably going to be more of the arena of well-being.
Mm-hmm.
But lifestyle will impact on all of that too, won't it?
Yes, because lifestyle will either add to the stress or help you manage the stress.
Yeah.
So that's nuanced as well. It's complex, this topic, isn't it?
Yeah. So, and I think what we're saying is that it is just going to be dependent on what the individual shows up with. Whatever they feel is impacting their well-being. Could be relationships.
Yes. Yeah.
So that could have a huge impact on whether it's workplace or personal relationships. Those dynamics are going to have a huge impact on their well-being.
Yes. So in terms of someone coming to the coaching space, if we firstly clarify and get clear what they're bringing to the space, what their intentions are for the coaching, then we can start to explore that with them. So what would be the main features, do you think, of wellbeing coaching in that perspective?
I've no idea until I know what they've come with. So and I think we have to not be afraid of the idea of well-being coming into the coaching room and just think, oh God, it's well-being. I've not learned how to be a well-being coach. I think as a coach, you are there to discuss whatever comes up for the coachee. So if an aspect of their well-being is their relationships in the workplace, then we're going to talk about that. If it's about the level of activity they're engaged in, physical activity, that they're not happy because they're working too many hours and they're not getting the exercise they want, then we'll talk about that. So whatever it is that's coming up from them, we're going to have the capacity to have good conversations about well-being and ways that they can improve their well-being.
And that's the beauty of doing transformational coaching and having all of these tools and resources and training.
And if we think about the different approaches that we take, the person-centered approach of sitting and listening and allowing the space for someone to really air their thoughts is a great way of helping someone with their well-being, because quite often these things just ruminate, don't get spoken about. So actually just offering that space can be really helpful. The solution-focused approach to coaching will provide them with access to their strengths, what they could be doing for themselves to remedy the situation. So they might visualize their perfect week and start to put in place things that are going to improve their well-being. Obviously, we've mentioned positive psychology, and that is really focused almost exclusively on well-being, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Ways of doing that. And one of the things that we do with trainees is get them to create a happy playlist. So increasing the amount of positive emotions they're feeling by engaging with things like music. Obviously, exercise might be producing positive emotions as well. So there's ways within positive psychology that we can support that, and other aspects of that will be finding meaning in their work, which again, we go back to those elements of, overall, am I happy with my life? Yeah. If we've got meaning in our life, quite often we'll put up with a lot of negative aspects of the life. So for someone the other day who was saying that she works 300 hours in a month.
Wow.
Which is a huge amount of hours to be working. But she finds real purpose in her work and doesn't really want to work less. There's just not enough time in her life for other things because she's always working, but loves her work. But useful to think about that and how she might still maintain the meaning she gets from her work whilst perhaps being kind to herself and working less.
If that's what she wants
to do. That's what she wants to do. And obviously, again, within positive psychology, we look at the flow state, that engagement with our work and how engaged we are. And obviously, if we're becoming cynical and detached from the work that we're doing, that's going to lead to less of a sense of well-being. So positive psychology is a really useful area that coaches can engage with around well-being. I think if we come on to relationships, we cover transactional analysis in our transformational coaching, and that explores those relationship dynamics. And if we've got difficult relationships, sometimes working them through in the coaching room can help someone to gain perspective and perhaps make changes to the way the relationship dynamics work. When we look at cognitive behavioral coaching, we're looking at perhaps thinking patterns that people get into. So you mentioned negative emotions earlier, and quite often the stories we tell ourselves will produce those negative emotions when actually it's just some faulty thinking that we've got. We've taken one incident and blown it out of all proportion, and suddenly that's affecting our mood, causing stress. So again, impacting on our well-being. And if we look at Gestalt, then again, we can look at bringing everything that impacts on our well-being into the coaching room, into the here and now, and really working through it in the here and now, and perhaps bringing about some change so that allows us to be more ourselves and show up as us. So again, that can be really useful in terms of our well-being. If we're being authentic, if we're becoming more who we are, then that's going to help with our well-being. And then finally, in terms of neuroscience, our last strand of transformational coaching, understanding the relationship that we have with stress and the impact on activating the sympathetic nervous system and going to perhaps to that fight or flight response, and being able to come out of that, finding tools and techniques to remedy that and get back to our rest and digest state can be really useful.
It strikes me because there are so many aspects of well-being and there are so many approaches and ways of working through those different aspects that a wheel might be useful.
A wheel?
I think a wheel could be useful.
A wheel of well-being?
Yeah.
We could do that.
And I think that, what I'm thinking is that you could have your client present that they want to work on their well-being. You could explore with them what the dimensions of well-being are for them, and then get them to make their own wheel and assess that, and then find the point that they want to start working, which would then inform how you would move forward with that.
Definitely, that would be a good place to start. But I think what we've managed to do is explore all the different dimensions of well-being that might come up for someone, and recognise that you don't have to be a well-being coach to be able to address well-being issues in the coaching room. I think if you've learned to be a transformational coach, then you're going to have tools and techniques at your disposal and different approaches at your disposal that will allow you to navigate that space, whatever it turns out to be for the coachee.
Yeah.
So it's really allowing them to come and being very person-centered, allowing them that to emerge within the coach room, being curious and exploring what well-being means to them and what aspects of it they want to improve upon.
Yeah. So I wouldn't class myself as a wellbeing coach, but it's a fundamental piece of what I do.
Yeah. And we're both transformational coaches, but quite often the transformation that we're bringing about for people is improved well-being.
Absolutely.
And it might be a byproduct of other things that are going on for them, but that will be part and parcel of it. So I think we have to not be fazed by the term well-being in the coaching room, and just take it in our stride and know that we've got the resources to be able to support people in that space.
So if someone was to say, I need to work on my well-being, we could honestly and openly say coaching can absolutely help with your well-being.
And I, as a coach, can help.
Can do that. Yeah.
Good. We've made a start.
I think
that's all we could do today is just start the conversation about well-being in coaching. As I maybe a podcast that is well-being coaching as an approach.
Yeah. And what I'd like, I think, I'm sure you'll agree, I'd like to invite our listeners to respond to this episode, perhaps with their thoughts on well-being and their questions around it, because that would be really useful to inform our further exploration on it.
Yes. Come on, ask us some questions. Engage with us. We like people to respond.
Yes, absolutely. And actually that very nicely segues into our next episode, which is we've got a few questions that we're going to answer from us.
Question and answer session.
Yes, with a difference.
Lovely. I should look forward to that. I've enjoyed today. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.